very much for tuning in to the Dallas Design Sprints podcast. I'm Robert Scrobe, and on today's show, we're going to be featuring Saadia Ali. She is a customer journey mapper and design sprinter hailing from Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. She works at Epic Consulting, where they strive to surface the voice of the customer through various activities and programs involved in their work. The conversation I have with Saadia explains her background, what got her involved in design, and some thoughts on where she could go in the future. Hope you enjoy the show, and we'll see you on the other side. So Saadia Ali, thank you very much for joining the Dallas Design Sprints podcast.
Thank you for having me over, Robert.
We met through the virtual design sprint event last November. You are in the United Arab Emirates, and
Yes.
you're into journey mapping, design sprinting. You've been consulting for quite a while. It looks like you also were a financial analyst at one point. So
Yes.
there's a lot there in your background, but as a good introduction to who you are, why don't we start with your professional journey, where you originally started, where you ended up today, and feel free to include anything interesting you'd like.
By qualification, I'm a chartered accountant, and I started my career as a financial analyst. And that at that time, I never thought that I'll be into this kind of profession, because even these days, CX, customer experience, is still related to marketing. It's a bit journey, my transformation from accounts and finance to CX or marketing. I won't say it marketing, because it's when you're into this, I can say it's very different from the marketing profession. But as a chartered accountant, I started off with Grant Thornton. While I was studying, I did some internships, and I taught accounting to BBA classes. But after I finished my ACCA, I joined Grant Thornton as a financial analyst. I worked there for a short while, and then my husband got a job in Kuwait. So we had to move to Kuwait. So from there, my kid had a certain syndrome, and I had to take care of her. And there was a point I had to decide that is it my career or my child. So of course, family comes first. So after but there was something that kept on, banging my dad. I want to do something. I have to do something. There was I was always, into career and this sort of thing. So after a few years, when things started to look settled down and stable, because when my child was sick, it was a lot of hospitalization in and out. And I think there are certain things, you can say your experiences in life, they take you somewhere. So, all the experiences of healthcare related issues and, the frustrations, the good parts, the bad parts, I think somewhere deep inside they make you. They make you the person you are. So from there, and in a meanwhile, when I thought, okay, now it's time to get back into career, I didn't have any idea of this CX thing or what marketing. Still, I was into finance. I thought that I started to explore Islamic finance, and I started to study, and I thought I'll go with some certifications and join again to some consulting or bank or. Then, while I was in that process, I came to know that my mother, her cancer came back, and this time it was terminal. So again, it was that fork in my life, that family or career. So again, I chose my family, and Alhamdulillah, I'm really proud of this. That I made, now looking back, I realized that I made the right decision. So 2 years, my mother, she struggled and she lost her life. I lost my mother, and then and when my mother was sick from Kuwait, I moved to Pakistan. I stayed with her for 2 years, and then we came to here, UAE, United Arab Emirates. And from here, I started off, and then my husband and myself, and then when my mother was sick, again, it was my experience with healthcare and, hospitalization and what and talking to people, listening to their stories, what pain they are going through, what experiences they have. I think certain things are. I've always been interested in observing people. I studied psychology a little bit. I was more of a person who loves to observe people and listening to their stories, and interestingly, from the very early age, I don't know why, but you may think that something that uh, it's a coincidence. You can say that I've always tried to put myself in other person's shoes. Whenever there was something what I tried to do, I always asked myself that what if I was in her or in his place? What if I was facing the same situation? So these sort of things and these discussions and these experiences, they all led, and my husband and myself, we thought of coming into this customer experience profession. My husband is also a chartered accountant by profession, by the way. So we started this Epic Consulting, and from there, so far it's no turning back. So it's good journey mapping, and initially we focused on SMEs because we are a small firm, and but SMEs they don't want to invest in a thing which has which is a long term process. So that's been a struggle, and from there, when I read the book Sprint, which a friend of ours he gave to us, when I read that book Sprint, it really it was very fun reading. It had stories, Blue Bottle Coffee and Savioke Robot. Uh, So that, and the thing that was fast process, it just caught my attention because this was something we were really struggling. Clients, especially SMEs, they don't want to invest in something. They want short term solution, or yeah, like instant solution, instant return. So Sprint was something that caught my attention, and while doing some Google research, I came to know about Design Sprint School by Tenny Pinheiro. So I joined his class. I did the course with Design Sprint School. So no doubt it was very extensive course. It's a 4-week course. You go through all the material, and this like you do some sort of practical thing with a you work on a case study, but it's something very different from actual design sprints.
So I have to say, this is probably the easiest podcast I've done to date because you literally touched on 16 different things I wanted to ask questions about, and you just were like, hey, this is what it is, and here's where I'm at. And all right, then. That's perfect.
Okay. So after my story hasn't finished yet.
Okay. Well, let me ask you one thing before you get going again.
Sure.
You mentioned that your ability to be able to put yourself in somebody else's shoes has been a trademark for yourself in your career, and I equate that to empathy.
I won't say in my earlier career. It was maybe you can say part of my personality, but maybe I was in the wrong career for that. Audit, finance, accounting. That's something very number crunching. Those or I enjoyed that, but maybe my personality was not meant for it.
It could be. It's one of those things where you have to experiment to figure out if what you're doing is really speaking to you.
Yeah, yeah.
So empathy. Do you find that you deploy that with your current work in your consulting? Do you find that empathy is something you lead with?
Yes, yes, and that's what we try to do whenever we are working on some proposal. We always try to put ourselves into our client's shoes, and it's what he might be thinking, why he would work with us. I mean, and we try to make a map that okay, at this point, why would he work with us? Why would he? What would he be thinking? So yeah, empathy does it does play a big role in everything, in professional and with your colleagues, with your friends, with your family, everywhere. If you empathize, people get comfortable with you.
I always strive for understanding and really listen to what people say to make sure I'm comprehending what they're saying. Too many times in the past, especially early on, I would hear something and my confirmation bias would kick in, and I'd fixate on that, and the rest of the conversation, 75% of it, I would totally wipe out or not even think about. And it was a big hang up for me from professionally for a while until I had to correct that when I went into my own consulting about at least a decade ago.
Mm-hmm.
With where you want to go with your consulting and design sprints, if you're looking forward into next year, what are some things or activities or projects? What are you looking forward to doing in the coming year?
Yeah, for epic consulting, we are there's a niche we want to focus on. One is customer journey mapping, because we started off as my husband is he's also a chartered accountant, so he loves number crunching. So initially our focus was data analysis and data analytics, and but we then refocused and rearranged our vision, and we moved into this customer journey mapping and voice of customer. So for now, our focus is to grow ourselves into design sprints and customer journey mapping, because as I mentioned that we have a project coming up, inshallah, and what we are trying to do is to combine, is to blend customer journey mapping and uh, some of the exercise assignments what I've learned from design sprints to design sprint school and virtual design sprint. So customer journey mapping is the way we do. It's a very detailed thing. We take voice of customer and we take insights and we take quotes of, and we do persona building, and we do a workshop with our clients, and we choose key journeys. And later on, what we are planning to do is, when the point comes and there are pain points and the area where we have to do brainstorming, I'm planning to. In fact, I'll take your advice on it as well. We are planning to do is to introduce LDJ at that point, just to introduce design sprints through this part, because when there's a point to brainstorm, we'll introduce LDJ, and just to let the clients know that this thing is something later on, if they want to test this idea or test the solution, we can adopt design sprinting that way. So virtual design sprint has been a really, really great experience for me. As I told you, design sprint school, I learned a lot, and it really helped me in exploring and in building my interest in design sprints. But the way we did in virtual design sprint, I felt the real rigor of design sprint. 4 days, 5 days, it was a roller coaster, and I joined as a co-facilitator with Sabrina. But somewhere down the first day, second day, I just felt myself lost. And since it was going too smooth and Sabrina was handling it so well, so I just thought, okay, go with the flow, sort of thing. And then it really gave me the flavor of design sprint. When they say that once it's on, then you're into it. So that way it was a great experience. And secondly, I've made a Facebook group for building more awareness about design sprint in Pakistan. And this virtual design sprints, it's a really good idea. What I'm thinking of doing, that just to once there's a little bit more traffic on that group, I want to engage people in something we can do remotely. That way I can build the way we were thinking of working on a design sprint referral network group. So I know that I have some people who I can team up with if I want to do design sprint that way, because because there's a price factor involved in this. If I want to do a design sprint in Pakistan especially, I won't be able to to get resources from international community. Price-wise, that won't be sufficient. I mean, price-wise, that won't be competitive. I won't be able, because I won't be able to charge that much from Pakistani market. So that way is something remotely I want to do similar sort of thing to see that I can what kind of resources I can get hold of if I need to design scripts in Pakistan especially.
That may be true. You also have the opportunity, especially if you're in a niche market locally, to rally people around what you do with design sprints.
Mm-hmm.
This is a story I'm seeing play out in places around the world where, say, like Abel, who was on the podcast before,
Mm-hmm.
I remember some of his commentary was around not many people know about design sprints. They are unaware of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Maybe it's more known in the States. I thought that was a distinct advantage because you're first out of the gate. If you are one of the central authorities or the authority in your locale for design sprints,
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing to say you couldn't still do it virtually, but
Mm-hmm.
you have the resources available to you locally to get involved. And if the Design Sprint Referral Network becomes a reality, which I hope it does, you could essentially put up something that says, hi, I'm out here in Dubai. We're going to engage in a design sprint in a month. I'd like to know if there's anybody in the international community that would be willing to get involved. And you wouldn't advertise it to the network. You would actually ask people that you worked with before, like Sabrina or myself or Brian Lung or Juggernaut or other folks that you have some level of trust with that may be able to connect you with someone that they know. And that's where I think it could really work. So it's not necessarily not being able to have at your fingertips a wide range of talent and available people that want to get involved. I think it's a matter of that resource being available to you so you could have that option. If you suddenly have a client that says, you know what, I did that LDJ with you, Saadia, and I think it's wonderful. I would love to get an 8-person team together. Some of them can be local, they can be virtual. It's up to you. This is the business outcome I want to achieve. This is what I would like to see happen with this. You can basically plan it out, but from a resourcing perspective, or I wouldn't say resourcing, from a people management perspective, you could tap that network and say, here's the opportunity, here's what kind of work it is, here's who I would ideally like to have, and the 2 or 3 people that you have a high level of trust in can go, okay, well, when do you need to know by? I need to know by Friday. This is something I need to get back to the client to. Then you have that turnaround, and you potentially could have something in pocket when you go and say, here are some people that I'm thinking about bringing in. Or they trust you enough to say, oh, well, if you have a team, great. Let's work on execution and logistics. It could work out like that.
Yeah, that's a good idea because the other downside of the first the part I was suggesting, that quality. If a person limits herself to or himself to certain a community, then quality gets there's a chances that you won't get that much quality, because if you have a bigger community to approach to, then chances are that you can maintain the quality and you can find resources that are really, really, you get the skills from the resources you're looking for.
I've also been very proactive in telling people that I've interviewed here and elsewhere to really start putting out what they do out in the open for their marketing and for social, and explain to people what Epic, for you, for example, what Epic Consulting is, what customer journey mapping is to you, how you do the voice of the customer. Start doing a lot of those artifacts online so that people can find you when you're not available and get a taste for what you're all about, understand your perspective, your point of view. You could even do it in your native language, in something that locally would be easier for you to explain if you had done it in some other language besides English, and just see how that tracks, see how people kind of connect to it. It would all depend on your comfort factor and how much time you have, given that and you have other obligations. But it would be fascinating for me to see you someday in a video saying, here's all about how I do customer journey mapping. It could be 5 minutes. It could be a simple whiteboard with a cam from your computer. But it would be, oh, I know Saadia, and I'd take a look at it, and I would ask questions, and it would be interesting for me to see how somebody else goes about doing that sort of activity.
Yeah, yeah, and you're right. You're absolutely right. Especially language is a great barrier. Sometimes it's a big frustration because here Middle East, majority of even high level there's a problem with they prefer Arab speaking person. Since I'm from Pakistan, my native language is Urdu. I don't know. I just know very little Arabic, and that's a big hindrance for me as well. So it even if something and people when you know if you're explaining a thing something to them in another language, sometimes they don't get the hang of it and they don't listen to that thing with too much uh, interest because they can't completely grasp the concept of it.
I think there's a lot of advantages to basically putting yourself out there in a way that's comfortable for you, but really showcases what you're all about.
Yeah, yeah, you're right.
Let's get into customer journey mapping. Do you do a lot of user research up front? How much investigation do you do in relation to the problem? How does it typically work from your standpoint?
It depends on the client budget basically because if they already have some feedback available, what we do we just go through the feedback. We sit down with the management and we decide with the team that what their key target segment is and what are the key journeys they want to map. And if they have something already with them, some data, we take that data and we involve the customer facing staff we did a workshop with a real estate developer here in Dubai. So we involved the people from sales, marketing, finance department, and even receptionist. We involved them, and they didn't have any customer feedback, documented or any. They didn't have any voice of customer or any feedback with them. So initially, what we started off with whatever whatever information the customer facing staff have, and they have quite a lot of information. They quite a lot of feedback they can give because they are constantly interacting with the customers. So it's like it's a as is journey map what we make, and there's no customer involved. But what ideally should be done that you need to involve customer in that. But the management, the people, they didn't want to involve customers because they knew that customers were really angry with them. So they said, no, we don't want to invite our customers in this workshop. And then he said, why? Then what's the point? It would be just an artifact you'll make her and you'll just put it on the wall. What's the point in that? So ideally, it should that you should go and you should get customer feedback and involve customer. If you are making a hypothetical like whatever, and during the workshop, it's really difficult to put them in the customer shoes because there comes a point they just start whatever they think, and they start to mapping the process. You just have to keep them reminding, no, you have to think from this persona. This is your customer. Here is persona is. And we paste the persona in front of them on the wall, right on the top of the journey map. And it's like we have to constantly remind them. And then we invite the customers, and if the client loves, which normally they don't. And then from there, it's we design the 2B journey map. That what kind of journey map. But so far we have done workshops with mostly it's done till as is. So for 2B, that's where the point, the LDJ, I want to involve that this is something that if they don't, because already journey maps are 2 days, 3 days workshops. So if they don't want to spend a lot of time for brainstorming or 2B, and LDJ would be something that will be something that might get their interest. Okay, that's a quick thing, quick brainstorming tool to use.
I found that personas have been hit or miss depending on who you present them to.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes bringing in an actual customer really starts to hit home.
Yeah.
I found that with user interviews and user tests, some of the most beneficial engagements have been where after the test is done and there's 5 to 10 minutes, allowing people in the C-suite, executives, other people that are more sales-focused, numbers-focused, to just start relating with that individual and asking them what their impressions are. And granted, it's only one person out of potentially thousands.
Mm-hmm.
it makes the experience more real. And I've never tried to project it into a user archetype. I've tried to couch it in terms of trends. Trending numbers and trends tend to speak to them in a certain way. So I've tried to use their language when describing what their customers experience. Yeah. Their satisfaction with your product is trending downwards for these reasons that they have said, or the market seems to favor this sort of experience versus what you've offered in the past that's been successful, but now seems dated, or that seems a little challenging for people when the options they have now in the marketplace are greater. Those kind of conversations can be tied into journey mapping, especially for customers where you can show the journey that they're currently on and new roads that have opened up for them, whether it's with competitors or with the person's own product. Sometimes it makes a connection that resonates with that audience. But again, this is just my own experience. How have you found that the conversations that you've had with your clients, do they react well to personas? Do they tend to ask questions related to outcomes? What's been your experience?
If there's something coming directly from the customer's mouth that that really hits them, you're right. I agree. And persona, normally what happens that when you are doing a customer journey mapping workshop, there comes a point that the teams there's a conflict. You can see the tension between the teams, marketing, finance, and there comes a point to start losing interest. But if in my experience with real estate clients, the sales people, they were really very happy with the workshop because that was something which they've been telling the management for a long time, and no one was listening to them. But when there was something, when we gave our report and the quotes we gave from the customer people, management, they were really okay, fine, and it really helped them implementing some of the changes in their strategic marketing and sales and marketing strategy. So it really helped them. And number-wise KPIs and you're right. The numbers are easy for them, especially CEOs, and they want little information but just to the point.
What do you offer that's different from everyone else related to consulting in your area? How do you differentiate yourself from another company that's offering similar services?
Here even in UAE also, CX is recently it has started. People are getting familiar with CX and journey mapping. They are kind of buzzwords. These, especially CX. Mostly it's with the clients. It's mostly lip service, and people they generally misunderstand CX with customer service. They really mix both these terms of customer service with customer experience. And our niche is basically to focus on SMEs. And here in the UAE, we don't know of any firm who's offering customer journey mapping workshops, especially for SMEs. Yes, Deloitte, they are big companies and they're target for large organizations. But for SMEs, we haven't heard of anyone who's offering workshops. We try to do in-house workshops and public workshops as well. But it's generally people they want to have they want to go for big names. But for our journey mapping podcast, yes, we want to interview practitioners or people who are doing customer journey mapping workshop in their organization. But another buzzword here is, and in Pakistan, is UX. People mix up with most of the things with UX as well. And recently, I attended a meetup, and they've invited some head of UX from the telecom sector. So I asked her that how do you use journey maps in your organization? So their focus is mostly on digital side. So and I wasn't very clear that how do they combine CX with UX. And this is something which I'm putting questions in my group as well, because mostly my group members are from the UX and UI background. So, recently I've put one of the journey map with an experience with a bank and, sanitized map. And I've asked questions from UX guys that how do they see it and what kind of improvements would they suggest from UX point of view. So this is something that CX, UX, I just want to, make it clear for myself as well, that are these just jargons, or how do really organizations are differentiating between both, and how if these they are two different things, how organizations can collaborate, CX and UX can collaborate to give a seamless experience to their customers.
Are you currently doing a podcast, or are you planning on doing one in the future?
Planning, and hopefully we launch into January 2019, because this week, and we've just started building the infrastructure and everything. But this it's holiday season, vacation time, everything is slow down here as well. People are on vacation leave, so inshallah we are planning to launch next month, next year.
Well, yeah, I think it's probably both, but yeah, somewhere
Yeah,
around there.
yeah.
Okay, so you've got a podcast coming up. You have an existing user group that you talk to UX, UI professionals about, like customer experience and user experience. Is there any other activities that you're involved with that you like people to know about?
One thing I must say, that these Facebook groups, if anyone who can even design a logo is a UX designer, and it's really hard to find actually professionals. That's why I really like the idea of this our DSRN. There's someone really you can trust, and you can team up with as a resource. And sorry, I forgot your question. Yeah, you
Yeah.
asked me about the activities.
Yeah, what other activities are you doing next year?
Next year, this journey mapping podcast, customer journey mapping, and hopefully design sprinting, because uh, I just want that next year, if someone says design sprints in Pakistan, especially, my group, and people can refer, or my name comes to their mind. And next time when I go to Pakistan, I plan to go and visit some incubators and just go and talk to them and just tell them that this is something that, and to explore avenues that how we can collaborate. And people are doing. It's not that people aren't doing it, but a very few. And like for example, top business school, LUMS, by the name of LUMS, they have their incubator, and they are doing it, because then again they have the resources. They invite people from the US and from Google, and they come and they give, and they do this hackathons and workshops. But everyone can't afford that, and there are a lot of people who can't afford, and you can't, and they can't have this uh, experience or this opportunity. And especially as a language wise, I also feel, because I've noticed that in my group, I've been interacting in English, but I'm thinking of asking people that whatever language they feel comfortable, because there's not that much engagement which I want to be. I want more people to be engaged. They are able to ask questions, and I want them to be more engaged in the group. So that's why. And another thing, yeah, I've been thinking of this idea of making a video in Urdu, and just to make just to democratize these design sprints and journey mapping, and just to bring more awareness. People are not dependent on others. uh, they have the idea, they can start experimenting on their own if they want to.
Well, part of that is also going to be you essentially being the voice that they hear when you talk about how design sprints will work for them, what the customer experience journey is all about, how you basically approach it. It really is a matter of producing content that other people will consume and notice that, oh, Saadia is talking a lot about this. Let's listen and figure out what she has to say.
Yeah.
That's my hope, is that you get in that position so that the first quarter of next year, we start seeing a lot more coming from you when you have ample time to do those sorts of things.
Yeah,
But to your
hopefully.
point, you don't want to get overloaded with a lot of things and then suddenly find yourself too committed in some way.
Yeah, but as I mentioned, we are a small firm, so we have to wear multiple hats. At so sometimes you have things in your mind, but you don't have that much bandwidth and don't have that much time to launch everything at the same time, or very very quickly. So things are in the pipeline, and hopefully we get more clients and in journey mapping. And uh, these are two niches that when someone says journey mapping in the UAE and Pakistan, Epic Consulting and design sprints Epic Consulting. So or maybe myself, or but basically I'm promoting Epic Consulting. So these are the
Yeah.
two things. Yeah, my husband, my colleague and my husband, he's leading the journey mapping side. So I'm gradually shifting myself to design sprints. So I'm more into design sprints now. Plus
And
I'm
I'm
supporting.
I'm sure it'll work out for you. I have no
Okay,
doubt.
thank you.
Next year you'll have 20. If we're here's a good question. If we're talking next year, 2019 in December, tell me what would be a great year and what would be a fantastic year for you.
Okay, okay. A great year would be that we get more stability. Epic Consulting gets more stability, and people we get clients, and just to bring more financial stability. And fantastic year would be that I want to take my daughter to watch snowfall, and if I'm able to take her, so that will be a fantastic year for me.
Where would you go to have her watch the snow?
Actually, we haven't been able to go to our northern areas. They're lovely. Gilgit, Sawat, Naran, Kagan, and it's they're beautiful, and we haven't been able to go there. So maybe there, or maybe my siblings, they live in New York and Boston, so maybe there.
Good. So Sadia, thank you very much for coming on. Really appreciate it, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your week.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for having me over, and thank you for your time, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to participate in Virtual Design Sprint. That has been a fantastic experience, and it was a great team. I don't know, somehow there was we gelled very well. I hope whenever get to work with another team, it's the same way. Thanks again for listening to the Dallas Design Sprints podcast. If you have a question or comment about what you heard on today's show, email me direct at robert@dallasdesignsprints.com. You can also find me on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Pinterest. Just do a Google search for Robert Scrobe or ask a friend and see if they know. Thanks for listening. Talk to you next time.